So imagine your local power company trying to figure out if they need to buy, like, massive, expensive emergency generators for the month of July.
Right.
Historically, they'd just look at the National Weather Service or maybe hire some fancy consulting firm. But today,
Yeah.
they are literally looking at where teenagers, day traders, and, internet hedge funds are placing their financial bets. Welcome to the new economy.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds completely absurd on the surface, but it's rapidly becoming the absolute definition of financial truth-seeking.
It really is.
We're moving away from this world where we rely on massive institutions to retroactively tell us what happened last quarter, and we're moving into a world where the crowd itself is generating the data in real time.
Exactly. And welcome to today's deep dive. Today is Sunday, May 31st, 2026. And, as we close out the month, we are looking at some absolutely massive, high-volume consolidation across the whole prediction market landscape.
Massive.
Right. So our mission today is to look at the real-time data-driven liquidity across platforms like Polymarket and Kalshi as May ends and June begins.
Yeah, we really want to see where the smart money is moving, because this isn't just about gambling on outcomes anymore.
No, not at all.
This is essentially a crowdsourced crystal ball for your wallet, the technology you use, and honestly, even your summer plans.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So to really understand the specific markets resolving today, we have to set the macro stage. We need to look at the global backdrop for why all this capital is shifting around right now.
Right.
Just yesterday, we saw this really dramatic collapse in oil contract volatility.
Yeah, the wild price swings we've been seeing for months just suddenly flattened out.
Completely flattened.
And our sources note that this collapse in volatility isn't just random, it's directly tied to the 60-day U.S.-Iran ceasefire extension that was just announced.
Precisely. With that specific geopolitical risk suddenly cooling off, the price of oil stabilized. And, in the financial world, when a volatile asset suddenly becomes boring...
Traders immediately pack up their capital and pivot elsewhere.
Exactly. They are constantly hunting for the next catalyst.
So, with oil taking a breather, it makes sense that we start at the absolute foundational level of the domestic economy, which is interest rates.
Right.
Today is the final day of the month, which is a massive deal in the prediction market space.
Oh, absolutely. Because the end of the month means all those monthly economic brackets are officially expiring. This is settlement day. The theoretical probabilities turn into actual payouts.
Right. And looking at Kalshi, the massive contract pool tracking the Federal Reserve's path is resolving its May tranches right now.
Cool.
Oh, wait, before we get into the numbers, when you say May tranches, what does that actually mean mechanically for the person listening?
Oh, sure. Great question. So a tranche is really just a slice of a larger financial pie.
Okay.
Instead of one massive bet on what interest rates will be all year, prediction platforms slice that timeline up into monthly contracts, or tranches. So people who bought contracts specifically predicting the Fed's behavior through the end of May are either cashing out or losing their shirts today.
Got it. And the people cashing out locked in an incredibly specific prediction, right? A 63% probability of exactly 0 Fed rate cuts for the first half of 2026.
Yep, 0.
0. Nothing. Which, honestly, I have to push back on, because for the last 6 months, if you turned on financial cable news, every talking head was predicting relief. We were supposed to be getting multiple rate cuts by summer.
Well, what's fascinating here is the brutal honesty of the market compared to the wishful thinking of cable news.
Yeah.
The crowd successfully predicted a hawkish, high-for-longer interest rate freeze all the way through May.
And let's define hawkish, high-for-longer really quickly for the listener. That basically means the Federal Reserve is acting like a strict parent, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
They are prioritizing fighting inflation by keeping borrowing costs painfully high, rather than cutting rates to stimulate economic growth.
Exactly. And the mechanism here is what really matters to you, the listener. This baseline of 0 cuts dictates the cost of your mortgage, your auto loan, your credit card APR. The prediction market isn't just making a sterile economic guess here. They are collectively mapping out the precise cost of living for the next few months.
I like to think of it like trying to drive a car with the parking brake permanently stuck halfway up.
Yeah, perfect analogy.
Like, the economy can still move forward, sure, but every single transaction requires so much more gas, more capital, just to get the same distance. Everyday consumers are essentially being forced to look at these Kalshi odds and entirely abandon their near-term rate relief expectations.
It forces a reality check. When these contracts expire today, the people who bet on a hopeful rate cut lose their capital. The truth is just incredibly expensive to ignore.
Okay, so let's follow the money then. If capital is tied up in this high interest rate environment where borrowing is incredibly expensive, where is the serious financial conviction actually flowing?
Good question.
Because usually high rates mean companies stop expanding. But according to the sources, a massive amount of liquidity is flowing straight into aerospace.
Yeah, it is the great exception to the macroeconomic rule right now.
Over on Polymarket, they're tracking a SpaceX IPO announcement to happen before July 1st, 2026.
Right.
Now, rumors of SpaceX going public have floated around for years, but this contract is sitting at a staggering 95% probability.
It's huge.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I have to push back on this data. In prediction markets, a healthy debate usually hovers around like 40 or 60%,
Yeah.
but 95%.
Yeah, that's exceptionally high.
That is basically a sure thing. At 95%, is this even a crowd prediction anymore? Or are we just watching people who already know the answer place their bets?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, your skepticism is dead on. This isn't just retail traders reading space blogs and making a guess.
Right.
This specific market is backed by an NPM integration.
NPM being the NASDAQ private market.
Correct. The mechanism here is crucial. The NASDAQ private market is where institutional investors buy and sell shares of private companies, like SpaceX, before they ever go public.
Okay.
By integrating that real-time settlement data into Polymarket, we're essentially watching a shadow listing.
A shadow listing. Wait, explain how that works in practice.
Normally, when private equity changes hands, the public has no idea what valuation those shares are trading at or what the internal timelines are.
Right, it's totally opaque.
Exactly. But because Polymarket uses algorithmic integrations to track that private liquidity, the prediction market automatically updates. When you see a 95% probability, it means the private equity whales are moving their capital in a way that mathematically guarantees a public roadshow is imminent.
Oh, wow.
It's an aggregate of insider confidence legally filtered right through a prediction market.
So the smart money has completely made up its mind, and the algorithm is just exposing that to the rest of us.
Completely. And it shows how a specific blockbuster corporate catalyst can defy that parking brake economy you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Even when money is painfully expensive to borrow, a generational company like SpaceX going public will always attract absolute conviction.
But you cannot talk about SpaceX and looming July timelines without talking about Elon Musk's other massive immediate undertaking. And this one isn't happening on a launch pad. It's happening in a courtroom in Oakland.
The OpenAI versus Musk trial.
Yes. We are in week 3 of this trial. And according to the data, this is the #1 trending prediction market by trading velocity.
The volatility is staggering.
It really is. The sheer speed at which money is moving in and out of this contract has completely taken over the boards.
Right.
On Kalshi, the specific contract is asking if Musk will prevail on his core breach of mission claims against OpenAI.
Right.
And just to define that jargon for a second, a breach of mission claim essentially means Musk is arguing that OpenAI legally abandoned its original nonprofit charter to benefit humanity and instead pivoted into a traditional profit-chasing tech company for Microsoft.
That is the absolute crux of the liability phase they are arguing right now.
So midweek, the probability of Musk winning was sitting way down at 39%.
Yeah, it was looking pretty weak.
But by Friday afternoon, it rallied all the way up to 46%. It is practically a dead heat. And I know you're thinking at home, like, why would I care about 2 billionaires fighting in a courtroom in Oakland when I just want to know if ChatGPT is going to take my job?
Well, this raises an important question because the reason for that massive price swing answers exactly why the listener should care.
Right.
The jump from 39% to 46% was directly triggered by live testimony from former OpenAI board members regarding that specific transition from a nonprofit to a for-profit entity.
Right. So the market essentially gamified the courtroom testimony in real time. A witness spoke, the crowd processed the legal weight of those words, and the odds instantly repriced.
Yes.
It's literally like watching a live sports scoreboard, but for the justice system.
And we must remain entirely objective here regarding the parties involved, right? Because the market itself is agnostic. It doesn't care about the personalities. It only cares about the legal mechanics. This trial is drawing massive liquidity because it is the ultimate forward indicator for the legal boundaries of artificial intelligence.
How so? Like, what's the broader implication?
gets to establish the legal precedent for open source versus commercial AI development.
Oh, I see.
If the judge rules that a company cannot simply shed its nonprofit roots once the algorithm gets valuable, it completely rewrites how every tech startup in Silicon Valley structures their AI research.
Wow.
Traders aren't betting on Elon Musk or Sam Altman. They are desperately trying to front-run the judge's summary instructions because those instructions will dictate the regulatory playbook for the entire tech sector heading into June.
Okay, so the AI algorithms are fundamentally shaping the tech sector. But algorithms are also fundamentally shaping the entertainment we consume, which brings us to a totally different side of these platforms.
Yes, a very different side.
You don't just have to bet on the Federal Reserve or complex tech litigation. You can bet on summer escapism.
The transition from, institutional hedging to retail pop culture betting is such a fascinating split in user behavior.
It really highlights how versatile the tool is.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, Polymarket has a massive bracket running for the highest grossing film of 2026.
Oh, yeah.
And the crowd is heavily favoring Marvel over Star Wars. Spider-Man. Beyond the Spider-Verse is holding a commanding 58% lead over the upcoming The Mandalorian and Grogu summer release, which is sitting way back at 31%.
That is a significant delta for two massive Disney properties.
Yeah, it is. And it's not just movies either. Over on the sports side, we are seeing hundreds of millions in cumulative volume clearing this weekend on the NBA Finals.
Unbelievable volume.
Multi-leg parlays have the Oklahoma City Thunder locked in as the heavy statistical favorite to repeat their championship run, sitting at a 42% implied probability.
Let's briefly break down those terms so everyone's on the same page. When you say implied probability, that simply means taking the betting odds and translating them into a straight percentage chance of an event happening. And a multi-leg parlay is when a trader ties multiple specific outcomes together for a higher payout.
Right. So instead of just betting, like, the Thunder will win, a multi-leg parlay would be predicting the Thunder will win the series, and D, a specific player will score 30 points in Game 4, and D, the series will end in exactly 6 games.
Exactly.
You have to get every single leg right to win the contract.
Which requires incredibly deep, nuanced knowledge of the game to predict accurately. Hence, the high volume of trading.
But right next to the movie brackets and the basketball parlays, there is something happening on Kalshi that affects everyone listening, whether you care about sports or not.
Oh, absolutely.
We are talking about the literal summer heat.
This is where prediction markets pivot back from entertainment to critical infrastructure.
Right. So last week, Kalshi had a contract resolving on whether this would be the hottest May ever. And that contract failed. It closed out at a modest 14% baseline.
Right. It was hot, but not record-breaking.
Exactly. But our sources show that the liquidity has immediately shifted to a new contract. Will June 2026 break global temperature records?
Yeah.
And the 24-hour volume on this June contract is seeing a massive early spike.
Yeah, the sheer volume moving into that June contract tells us that something fundamental has shifted in the underlying meteorological data.
So what does this all mean? When I look at this, I see people crowdsourcing everything from who wins a basketball game to whether air conditioners are going to work next week.
Yeah.
Are we basically just gamifying our own summer utility demand? I mean, are we turning climate change into a casino?
Well, it's easy to look at it that way, but we have to draw a really hard distinction between how retail traders use these platforms and how institutions use them.
Okay, what's the difference?
The pop culture brackets, Spider-Man, the NBA parlays, that is retail liquidity. It's entertainment. But the weather market, mechanically, that functions as a deadly serious financial instrument.
Honestly, I'm struggling to see how betting on the weather is fundamentally different from betting on a movie. In both cases, you buy a yes or no contract and wait to see what happens.
Mechanically, the interface is the same, but the utility is entirely different. Let's walk through a real-world mechanism.
Okay.
Imagine you run a major power grid in Texas. Your internal risk department looks at the models, and they are terrified of a record-breaking June heat wave.
Right, because everyone turns on their AC at once.
Exactly. If that heat wave hits, millions of air conditioners turn on at the exact same time, and you, the power company, suddenly have to buy massive amounts of emergency backup electricity on the spot market at astronomical prices.
Which completely destroys their profit margins, or worse, causes rolling blackouts.
Exactly. So what does the power company do? They go onto Kalshi, and they buy millions of dollars worth of yes contracts on the June heat wave breaking records.
Wait.
They are essentially betting against their own optimal conditions.
Oh, I see. It's an insurance policy.
Precisely. It is a hedging mechanism. If the heat wave doesn't happen, the grid runs normally, they make their standard profit, and they write off the Kalshi contracts as the cost of insurance.
But if it does happen,
If the heat wave does hit, and they are forced to buy that expensive emergency power, the Kalshi prediction market pays out massive returns, which they then use to offset the cost of the emergency electricity.
that is brilliant. They aren't gambling. They're using crowdsourced liquidity to financially buffer their physical infrastructure.
Yes. When hundreds of millions of dollars are on the line, the prediction market aggregates supply chain vulnerabilities, meteorological data, and historical trends far faster than any single internal risk department ever could.
Right.
Energy companies, agricultural conglomerates, logistics firms, they watch that June heat anomaly contract spike, and they realize the crowd is signaling a genuine threat to grid stability across North America.
Okay, let's pull all this together. Today, we've gone deep into the source material from this May 31st settlement day, and we've decoded the actual mechanics behind these shifting probabilities.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We've seen how the expiration of the May tranches forced a harsh reality check, locking in a 63% probability of zero rate cuts for the first half of the year.
Right.
We've seen how NASDAQ private market integration creates a shadow listing, essentially guaranteeing a SpaceX IPO. We tracked a live-action algorithmic scoreboard for the future of open-source AI in Oakland, and we've seen how institutional money uses weather prediction markets to literally insure our power grids against record-breaking heat.
And the reason you should care about the mechanics of these markets is because they offer a totally unique vantage point. They strip away the wishful thinking of pundits and the lag time of official government reports.
Exactly.
By forcing people to put their own capital on the line, these platforms aggregate human expectations and raw insider data into a highly accurate, real-time mirror. It is an unvarnished look at what is mathematically likely to happen to your wallet, your entertainment, and your local infrastructure.
You don't have to wait for the news to tell you what happened last month. The crowd is already aggressively pricing in tomorrow. And that brings me to one final, slightly unnerving detail from our sources.
Oh.
Tonight, at midnight, the boards reset. New, massive prediction brackets are opening specifically for June inflation metrics and retail gas prices.
Wow.
Which leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with, something to mull over on your own as we close out this deep dive.
Okay.
We've just spent the last 15 minutes explaining how prediction markets are accurate enough to anticipate major court rulings, forecast corporate IPOs, and serve as literal insurance policies for municipal grid failures. So, what happens when your employer realizes how accurate this data is?
That's a fascinating angle.
Right. What happens when corporations stop waiting for lagging official government inflation reports that come out a month too late and instead start tying human resources directly to Polymarket? Imagine a future where your summer paycheck or your hourly wage is dynamically automatically adjusted based on what the betting crowd predicts gas and groceries will cost next week. If the market is a perfectly accurate, real-time mirror of economic reality, are we moving toward a world where your financial reality is dictated by the betting crowd before it even happens?
It is a profound question about the ultimate intersection of crowdsourced data and personal autonomy.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the prediction markets. We will see you next time.